Right, so we're going to look at some cacti today, as per a viewer's request. I think that was relating to a video done a couple of years ago about bunny ear cactus, sort of pointier types. But in general, you know, I don't really do too much on the cacti, but I have got a arid bed here, and all the cacti in this arid bed stays out year round. Most are a lot harder than you give them credit for, as long as you can keep them dry. So I do cover this over in winter. I will show you some examples of cacti that have been out in all weathers, let's say, with a shelter on over winter to keep them dry, but cold does not bother them. So we have got several types. We've got some barrel types, and you're gonna have to excuse the weeds. This area has been totally neglected over summer. I haven't weeded, so there are weeds overtaking everything, but we have got some fairly robust cacti in here which have survived well. So I can't give you names of any of these, but I will just show you. So we've got sort of a barrel type there, and several sort of point ears which would be classed as bunny ears, I suppose. Some people call them that. You know, nothing looking too particularly brilliant. I mean, other than I can't really get to it, but I have got some right at the back. So we have got agaves and other stuff in here as well, mongaves, again out all winter. Another barrel type there, smaller one. Yeah, most seem to do quite well. They do put on decent growth in the summer. We can just see behind the Propagation martyr leaf there, we've got a fairly tall one. I'm guessing 3 to 3.5 foot. Again, that's been in there for a couple of years. It has been outside for probably about 4 or 5 years in a pot or in a different area of the garden, and moved here and totally survived the -6/7 we got last winter for a week on end. Yeah, so they are tough old plants, but I will refer to the original sort of bunny ear video cactus. I mean, this is not the original cacti itself, this is just propagations I've taken from it. So I had a sort of fairly shallow ceramic bowl, and I just put a couple of pads in, probably a couple of years ago. Like I say, when I've done the original video, I might have done it then or around that time. So this is sort of 2 years growth from a single pad. We can see these are probably around a foot and a half, and these have been thoroughly neglected. These have been at the back of the greenhouse all summer, so they're getting a little bit of light, a little bit of heat, not much water, so they probably could have done with a bit more water over the summer period. But in general, looking pretty good. These ones always come with a warning, with the not spines as such, but them little hairs which tend to, they are sort of hooked on the ends, and they will stick in your finger, and you'll have them for days unless you pick them out with tweezers. They're quite annoying. But yeah, so tough old things. Like I say, these are cuttings from the original plant I had, which was huge, and I actually sold it in the end because it got too big. I'd have nowhere to put it. Some of these I might put in the arid bed next year when I sort it out, if I've got space. If not, they'll just remain in the bowl here. You can neglect them, you can have them as house plants, but they don't grow much indoors. They do tend to put on full potential outside, and like I say, the winters wouldn't bother them as long as you can keep them dry. If you've got an overhang or a shelter, or even just, you know, a cold greenhouse is fine, as long as they're kept bone dry. Like most cacti, they'll be absolutely fine. So I have got a selection of other cacti here as well, which this is a propagation from a little, just one single pad. This is a type which I'd call like a a coral type, which is sort of, they're not sort of standard sort of flat pads, they are sort of more wriggly and look a bit like coral when they get to a certain size. And again, we've got a sort of a bowl here with, literally these are just cacti you'd go in any garden centre and buy for a quid. So again, I'm not a cactus expert. I like a few cacti here and there. These are, like to say, just sort of impulse purchases if you like. I made a little bowl, a couple of nice stones, decorative, and that's just sort of been ticking away nicely over the last couple of years. We can see we have with these sort of types, you do tend to get a bit of slug or snail damage. They seem to like to take the surface skin area off, but doesn't seem to hold them back. They still grow. So again, these would all be just kept in the greenhouse, unheated over winter, kept dry, absolutely fine. Like I say, no research done on these whatsoever. This is a sort of type of variegated point ear, and we've got some sort of nice little cacti here. We've got a couple of little ones here. These I thought these were both the same cacti, but they're not. They're clearly not. These were grown from seed actually, so this one is probably 2.5 years old from seed, and this one was actually from last year. Again, this actually is a little ceramic pot, no drainage in it, so obviously got to be very careful how I water these. In the summer I give it a good drink and let it totally dry out for a couple of weeks and then give it a good flood. But in the winter again, or coming up to the winter, this time of year I'll sort of hold the watering back, just give it a little splash, and then, you know, maybe next month totally stop watering altogether, especially with this closed bowl, no drainage, that doesn't want any water sitting in there. But again, these are actually like the giant Mexican, I think they're supposed to be the tallest cacti in the world. Yeah, grown from seed. It came in this a little kit with the seeds and the bowl. It has got a crack in it, so that was reduced. I probably paid about £1 for the seeds and the bowl and a little sort of sandy soil mix. So yeah, we've got 4 out of that. More did come up. You know, when they're small, they tend to be, you know, you do have to keep them fairly damp. They do tend to dry out and just shrivel up. So they're the 4 that survived out of probably 8 maybe that germinated. And again, this is why, and this is one I bought beginning of the year. It says $4.50, it was half price, so it's like $2.25. So this is what I tend to do. I tend to buy a reasonable size sort of cacti, or just a cheap sort of pound tiny little pot, and I'll just experiment. Like I say, I don't really worry about doing any research. You buy them cheap and small, and you know, if they're going to survive the sort of climate you live in, they will survive, and they'll grow well over the summer for you. You know, you could just sink the pot into the ground if you want to do that, and in the winter you could dig it up or just pull it out and have it indoors, or like I say, in a cold greenhouse would be fine for most cacti that you see in your shops. But yeah, so I say there's no trick to it. It's just a little bit of experimentation. I can't say these are going to be hardy in everyone's climate. I don't know, you know, how damp, how cold your climates get in the winter, but I'd say all these cacti here in these pots and bowls are going to be hardy to at least -10, and we're talking Celsius, whatever that is in Fahrenheit, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, most will take a really good amount of cold as long as they're dry, and a lot of them will shrivel up and even sort of flop down to an extent over winter, and then as soon as it warms up and you give it a little bit of water, that will perk up again. And a lot of them, I mean, we can see this one here is actually from a pad that is totally rotted out, but yet the other pads are still growing. So what I could do is just break each pad off and replant it in the soil, and that would give you several more plants. So if you have got one that sort of fell over or slight rot at the base, not a problem. Just take the pads off. Obviously you'd be wearing sort of gloves or some sort of hand protection doing that. Bit of rolled up newspaper works well. You can roll it up into a tube and then hook it round and grab it like that and just cut the pad and then plonk it in the soil that way. That's what I tend to do, so my hands are nowhere near it. But yeah, a lot hardier than you give them credit for. So I don't talk about cacti much, but I do grow quite a few and I do enjoy them. And yeah, you'd be surprised how quick they can grow, even in a UK climate, which we don't particularly have hot summers, but that's, the good light levels and the warm temperatures tend to give you a decent amount of growth. And like I say, it's all experimentation. I don't water this area at all during the summer. We get rain, obviously. That's enough to keep things ticking over. So with cacti, I'd say exactly the same thing with agaves and any sort of succulents. As long as you can keep them dry, even like a ponytail palm here that's been out all summer, that'll just go in the greenhouse in the winter and kept dry, and that will be quite happy. Right, so I mean, like I say, no expert, but I have managed to grow quite well some of these cacti, which call it luck, call it common sense, really. Cacti come from a very arid, dry environment, which a lot of desert plants, they can take the cold, because in deserts that can drop below freezing at nights. But that's that lack of moisture which is there, which keeps them going. Right, so not really much more I can add to that. Just a quick one on the cacti, as I ain't done one in them really on any cacti for quite some time. So that is that. I hope it helps. If there's any individual plants or anything I can go further into for you, then obviously drop us a line. But like I say, I grow a wide variety of plants. I'm not really an expert on anything. I just tend to get lucky or get by. That is, I hate to use the word common sense, but I mean, most people know what sort of plants, where they come from, and you're just trying to mimic to an extent their natural environment. Obviously easier said than done in the UK for some of these more tropical plants, but again, just a bit of forethought before you go and buy any sort of expensive plants. Do try out maybe a year or two overwintering some cheapies, just to get some cheap plants. And yeah, I certainly wouldn't buy any big specimen cacti for silly money. I would just either, you see me get them online, Facebook Marketplace, car boots, garden sales, people tend to flog them. And yeah, most cacti, especially like the pointiers and stuff like that have got pads, they're so easy to propagate. You can have several plants in one season. Yeah, we'll leave it there. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.